You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better. Put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the third part of What If Naruto Enters Owlhouse? Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Orion's Night on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Edric and Amira were laughing as they run past the kids' corner, shooting snowballs from the books they held at each other. While this was going on, Luz had found Naruto in the room, staring at a certain book, Otobin the bookmaker. "What you lookin' at?" spoke to the human who was peeking over his shoulder, which he shows it to her. "This was the first thing Ida read me when I was having nightmares a few years ago after we moved into the owl house. I was still relatively new to the whole demon world without my memory, so everything was scary. But hearing this story somehow relaxed me." With that said, he opens it and Otobin rises out of the pages. Otobin spent his days alone amongst the many books he'd sewn. With needle and thread the pages he'd mend. But all the while he longed for a friend. As Luz read it, Naruto was staring at Otobin, who looks up at them. "Friend?" That question got a response as Naruto smiled and outstretched a hand to pat Otobin atop his head. "We're friends." As he told him that, Luz just stared at Naruto to see him looking very happy at the sight of Otobin, which she couldn't help but smile as well. "Guys, check this out." This got their attention as Luz closed the book and the two turned to see them approaching with a glowing book. "Look what we discovered." She opens it to show a duck gliding out of the pages and on the floor, quacking happily as it looked like it was swimming around them. "Ah! Cute little quackster." That joy she had immediately ended upon Amira holding the book out to Edric, who had a pencil in hand and draws. In a matter of seconds the duck forms two giant human legs which cause it to quack hysterically. This sight disturbs the two more so Naruto as his ears flop. Now he's extra cute. With that, she closes the book and the twins laugh before turning to them. "Your turn, Luz." In response, she starts to back away with the book in hand. "I don't know." Yet, even so, Edric offers her his pencil. "Come on. Don't stop the fun." This causes Luz to reach out hesitantly but was stopped by Naruto getting between them and putting a hand against his. "She doesn't want to, can't you see they don't like it?" He looks at the book in Amira's hand, yet Edric just gives a laugh. "They're just books, they can't feel anything, plus once the shooting star is over they're just normal books again." This got Naruto to grow angry as he starts to show his teeth before Amira gets between them and places a hand on their shoulders. "Come on guys, no arguing but only fun. Besides we didn't come here just to doodle. Come on." The twins take their hands and pull them along as Luz drops the book open, which starts to move while the group arrives at the romance section. "Oh, wow. Boiling Isles romance. That's totally lame. I mean, unless you guys are into it." While he heard her say that, Naruto glances at the books and takes one that caught his eye. "These have the Demon Empire emblem on them." As he mutters that, he read the title. "Marriage for Dummies, How to Be a Good Husband to Your Wives." After reading that, he noticed Luz's eyes widen a little as she recalled something. "What?" His question got a surprised look from the human. "Is having multiple relationships a thing in the demon world?" That got a surprised look from the twins while Naruto shrugs and looks at the book. "Yeah, Ida once dated two guys before, though it got really awkward when it turned out they were brothers. It's more so widely practiced in the Demon Empire. Is that another difference with your world?" He puts the book back while Luz starts to blush as the gears in her head start turning to her manga HRM fantasy, yet before Luz could reply, both had a hand on their shoulder, courtesy of Amira. You guys can gossip later on about the owl lady's love life. Besides, this book is the best. Edric pulls a book that was specifically titled The Lone Witch and Secret Room, which results in something clicking as the bookshelf sinks back and slides away, revealing a secret room to the fore. Wow! That's a good book, mutters Luz while Naruto just looks around the room at the selection chosen before they enter, with the twins leaning against the entrance. Your clubhouse is like my ultimate secret hideaway. Luz just smiles, amazed at what she was seeing before her eyes, while Naruto was glancing at some books before he noticed one on the table titled, From Enemy to Friend. We don't hang out in a library. The twins stop leaning and stand in front of the opening as Edric spoke. Teacher, I'm in love with a dictionary. I'm studying the dork arts. Amira proceeds to fake type before stopping. This is Amity's secret hideaway. She smiles with a devious glint in her eyes while Edric gives a thumbs up. Immediately the two look worried as Naruto's ears once again flop and Luz starts to sweat as they watch the two enter and stand at their side. Mittens has gotten too full of herself. She keeps tattling on us when we cut class. She needs to learn not to mess with people like that. So, we're going to find her diary. Amira smiles and looks at her brother. And then post the pages all around school for everyone to see. With that said, the two laugh happily and not even notice the expression a certain blonde was making. What? Luz got their attention while Naruto starts to back up, unnoticed. Isn't that taking it a bit too far? The siblings look at each other and smile before looking at her. No. See, we're her family. It's tough love. She needs to learn to lighten up. After saying that, the twins start to look around with Luz most standing there. Well, I don't see any diaries in here. She half-heartedly looks around before realizing something and turns to see Naruto was gone. This causes her eyes to widen before she looks around, and her eyes widen from the other side of the room where a set of books under the plaque that read, My Favorite Books, with the main attraction being the series titled, The Good Witch Azura. A small squeal escapes Luz's lips as she approaches the series. Good Witch Azura books 1 through 4. You get these on the Boiling Isles. So majestic. She grabs a certain book among them. Is this cover hand-drawn? After saying that, her eyes widen at seeing the cover was Amity dressed as Azura before opening it to reveal a small version of Amity rising from the pages. I saw that, human girl again. Her eyes widen. I may have overreacted. I don't want to come off as cruel. After what Naruto did for us, I feel worse than a bully. I need to make an effort, yet even so I just can't show weakness. Immediately she slams it shut, staring at it for a few seconds before shaking her head. I need to find Naruto. She was silenced upon hearing Edric speak. What have you got there, Luz? In response, she hides it behind her back while turning towards them. Oh. And nothing. Just a Good Witch Azura 5 where she goes through her goth phase. She was cut off as the book glows and flies out of her hands. No, wait. In response, Amira catches the diary and hands it to Edric, who opens it, which Amity appears. It's not fair. I'm the only one who knows Ed and Em aren't perfect. Why do they keep getting away with things? This got both to smile. This is it. After they said that, Amira looks up somewhat bothered. Luz, were you hiding this from us? Her words gained a response from her brother as they approach her. You see how she treats people. How she treats you. Luz raises both of her hands. I know Amity can be kind of cold, but no one deserves this. These are private thoughts. Let's put it back. She goes to grab the diary and pulls, but Edric doesn't let go before being joined by his sister, who starts tugging on Edric's waist. She needs this. It's for her own good. Despite hearing that, she didn't let go until Edric realized something and stopped. Hey, where's Naruto? That simple question got his sister to stop as she looks around until she stops at the opening, which the other two follow to find one angry Amity standing there while Naruto leaned out a little. Naruto, did you sell us out? Edric asked with surprise at the sudden betrayal, yet got a rather cold response as he looked away, arms wrapped around himself. I don't like bullies, all you'll do is hurt her. This got a surprised look from the twins, with Luz now wondering if something happened before she came to the demon realm, the look saying everything. You two are the worst, she said in a hurt tone and walks up, taking the diary from them while grabbing pages that started falling out, one being about Luz, another about calling her teacher mom. And you? She looks at Luz, yet sighs and looks turn away, hugging the book to her chest. I've been trying to figure out what your deal is. Are you a poser? A nerd? I'm not even sure if you're a bully. Just leave. With that said, she starts to walk out of the room, much to Luz's discomfort. Amity. She was about to run but stops as Amity mutters a thank you as she walks away, with Naruto just standing there before his attention was earned by the twins. Mittens killed the fun. As Edric mutters that, he was elbowed by his sister that gave him a look before turning to the two of them. I think we may have screwed up big time and crossed the line. As she said that, the two males there were out of the room, with Luz being the first. You two should talk to Amity, at this point I think we would make her more mad. She offers them a reassuring smile while Edric crosses his arms. So much for trying to help Amity finally break free from mom. This got a confused look from the two of them. What do you mean? Just a plan we put in motion, something to help Mittens, who's stuck under dear old tyrannical mom's thumbs. He stops as they soon earned it, a baby crying, which confused the group, yet that was when Naruto saw it, a look of fear on Amira's face while Edric was wide-eyed. Oh no! Was all he said, and without another word he runs past them, confusing the two, who look at Amira appearing very bothered. Seeing this, Naruto starts running after Edric, leaving Luz and Amira. Something we should know? Luz asked the twin, who looked very bothered, yet she shakes her head. We need to find Mittens, was all she said before running past Luz, who follows, yet it didn't take long. The group arrived to find Amity standing with her back to them. Between the door and her was a baby stroller. Inside it she heard something akin to crying. The sight itself confuses Naruto, yet Luz starts to tilt her head, something about it seeming familiar, as if seeing it before on YouTube. I thought I put that book back, Edric mutters, which gained Amity's attention. What's happening? At that point, she saw Amira going wide-eyed and looking up. Mittens, get back! Her shout caused her eyes to widen and turn back while looking up, yet at that moment they all watched something shadowy fall atop the baby carriage, silencing the cries. This scene slowly caused Amity to back up towards the others, who were looking at the shadowy figure move, the shadows turning to blackened cloth as it starts to stand. It can't be, mutters Luz, who seemed more horrified than confused, and Naruto glances at her. What's going on? It's a monster from some comic book I found a few years ago, mutters Edric, looking more scared as the seconds passed from the being changing. I was going to prank Amira as I did before with my illusion magic, but I changed my mind. Guess I didn't close it enough. As she said it, the being stood up, now revealing itself as strange towering creature covered in a cloak with silver chains hanging from it. The area where the hood was revealed had no face, but an invisible force was keeping the hood filed. On its back were two black tattered wings that began to spread. That thing's from a comic book that was adapted from a game in my world, Luz admits as she swallows upon seeing 6 skeletal arms coming out from the cloak. It's called Bloodborne. As she spoke, its hands point at each of them, and that's one of the bosses, Mergo's wet nurse. In response, Edric stepped forward as he raises a hand and creates a magic circle that fires right at the nurse, yet all it did upon expanding into a lasso and making contact with the being was dismantle and deconstruct, falling apart like a puzzle that shocks them. Magic doesn't work. Edric said with clear shock while his sister looked even more fearful as they all started to back up against the wall as it approached him. Not again. Amity mutters before with a puff of smoke the group found a fox before them, a large one nearly the size of the nurse and baring its fangs with a snarl. Naruto. Both Luz and Amity said simultaneously while Edric and Amira look at each other in surprise that it was him. At this time the fox roared at the boss, causing the room to shake as they all grabbed their ears, yet the boss merely reaches into its cloak and pulls out 6 swords, 1 for each hand, and starts to pull back each blade, the sight scaring Luz who knew Naruto would be hurt again, and in turn, Amity too realized it, yet at that time they all heard it. "You're in the way," was all they heard as someone jumped off the balcony, which gained the attention of the others as they watched someone land atop the boss, kicking it in where the head was supposed to be, which contact was made as it was staggering back, and landing before them was the butler who was looking up at the boss that appeared to tilt its head towards him. At this time Naruto had transformed back with a puff of smoke, the group staring at the butler's back while he was staring down the foe. "Don't know who you are, but a heads up, magic doesn't work on it," Edric called, yet the response he was given was unexpected. Of course, it wouldn't work. The butler starts taking off his jacket before tossing it aside. At that point it could be seen, a tattoo around the man's neck that took the shape of a collar with 3 fox heads on it. In the mouth of the heads was a lock. This event that brings form to books derives its power from world magic. Simple magic like yours has no effect against it, and physical attacks won't hurt it either. Letting this thing roam free is also not an option as well. "MSTR. he called, causing Naruto's ears to perk up. "I highly suggest you flee, but if you decline I would recommend finding the book it derives its existence from and either closing it or destroying it. Other than that, he moves just as it started. SWNGNG, in the span of a few seconds the group just watched in more awe than shock as the man had successfully dodged all 6 swords while landing another strike, causing it to stagger a little back yet appeared to be unharmed. "Hurry." As he spoke, he moved his hand to his cheek and wiped away the BLD, courtesy of a cut on his cheek. Luz just stood there, staring at the fact. The butler showed not a hint of fear as he stared down the creature before him until she was brought back to reality by a tug, and turns to see Naruto pulling at her arm with Edric, Amira, and Amity running down the hall, which they follow after them. As they did so, the butler was looking back at them before turning away. TCH, and here I thought I would get the chance to hear her voice again in private. As he mutters that, the two continue to fight while back with the group. They were running in a single direction with Edric leading the way. "You just had to pick the one book that would kill us all," Amira said, glaring at her brother while said twin looked quite sorrowful. "I'm sorry, I thought I put it back. Can we not do this now?" Amity's shout got their attention just as Edric turned and made his way up the steps with the others, further away from the fight happening, while Naruto and Luz stayed in the back. The horror section is, Edric stopped as they arrived at the top of the stairs, leading to a hallway, but what they got were a multitude of humanoid monsters with facial features of a wolf and covered in black inky fur. The beasts stood on their hind legs before taking notice of them and getting down on all fours, snarling at the 5 of them. "Scourge beasts, really?" Luz said with disbelief as one charged right for them, which Edric looks to her left, seeing a line of books about beasts, and grabs a particular one, flipping through it fast as his eyes widened just as the beast was close enough and leaped with Naruto about to attack when the twin opened the book and turned it fully, summoning for a giraffe. The sight causes the group's eyes to widen as the beast slams into it before biting down on the creature, yet the results were horrifying as the giraffe's head opens up to show its grotesque face that proceeds to bend down and devour the head of the beast, SWNGNG it back and forth before the body was sent flying in another direction without its head. "I think I now have a fear of giraffe," mutters the human who watched along with the others as it swallows the head and turns to them, screeching, which they scream before the other 2 beasts tackle the giraffes, causing the group to move out of the way as it stumbles back before falling down the steps with one off the beasts while the other jumped off and approaches the group slowly until a book gets thrown at its head, causing the 4 to turn to Edric, who threw the book he had been holding. "Edric!" Amira shouted, confusing the twin until they heard a howl down the steps and the sound of running, making the twin realize his mistake, yet it was too late to fix that as the beast ripped the book apart. "Run!" Amira shouts as she grabs a random book and opens it, summoning forth a swarm of fire bees which they all duck except the beast who was swarmed, swngng its arms crazily as it stumbled back and fell down the steps, with the group turning away to run in the opposite direction, with the blight twin leaving the book on the floor, open as they ran. But as they did so, the other beast made its way to the top, swiping at a few stray bees that were previously attacking the other beast before it starts to charge for them. "I hate these things." Amira shouts as she grabs a random book and throws it at the beast, bouncing off its head, yet it didn't stop it until large roots wrapped around it, courtesy of the book that was now open, to summon forth a large Venus flytrap-looking plant that had vines in the shape of a skeleton skull, pulling the beast into its mouth and chomping down on it. The group was looking back in surprise before they turned and they reached a corner, finding the horror section, but what they got instead was a thick mist, and standing in the center was a man wearing a ragged uniform while having a cage on his head. "No one can catch us. No one can stop us now." As he spoke, he raises a hand to reveal the open book that showed the boss monster that the butler was fighting. "He's got it." Naruto shouts, and with a puff of smoke turns back to a large fox that was growling, yet that guy simply laughs as he turns and starts moving down the hallway, with the most getting thicker along with more bookshelves appearing yet empty, becoming more like a labyrinth despite the side of the building in general. "Oh, come on." Amity glared at her brother. "Why did you even read this book?" In response, he raises his arms. "They were neat, and in my defense, I never expected the pages to come alive." Despite that being said, their focus turned back to where the foe had run off due to Naruto charging straight into the mist. "Naruto!" Luz shouts as she and Amity ran into the mist, yet before the twins could follow they heard footsteps and turn, being greeted by the sight of a tall man wearing black ragged clothing, a hat, a blndfld over his eyes, and holding a large axe soaked in BLD while the other hand held a silver gun. "Beasts all over. You'll be one of them, sooner or later." He lets put s long breath and starts running. Immediately the two turned and run down another hallway, opposite of where the three went before a loud sound rang with something grazing wound Edric's shoulder, but wasn't deep enough to be a serious concern, yet still BLD trickled just as the twins hid behind some shelves. "What's that smell?" "The sweet BLD, oh, it sings to me. It's enough to make a man sick." The twins swallow as they move, with the footsteps being heard as it follows. While this was going on, the butler was busy dodging strike after strike, yet dealing attacks to no avail. Such a nuisance. He thought, while a cut appeared okay his shoulder, this time a little deeper as BLD was drawn, which gets a TCH sound in response before he opens his jacket and takes our several tags with symbols in them, but stops and glances around at the many books, which in turn he frowns and only takes out a few just as the boss charged forward, and he tosses one in the air, creating a large source of light which it shields itself before another was thrown, splashing it with water all of a sudden before its legs were frozen in a block of ice, stopping it in its tracks with another making contact, resulting in it being electrocuted as a screech was heard as it fell back from another strike, slamming into where the head would have been, having it fall to the ground with the butler landing on the ground. Even with the glyphs, it's still not strong enough. As he thought about it, he watched it getting back up, but uses this to his advantage as he gets behind it and goes to strike, but stops with his eye widening and jumps back as the arms outstretched the blades directly at him from behind, narrowly missing the blades that cut several parts of his body, with it turning to look at him while he was skidding back. Didn't expect that. His train of thought ends when he took notice of the swords in two of its hands disappear, surprising the butler, whose eye widens upon seeing it raise them high, and a darkness forms before spreading into a misty veil of darkness that blocks out everything around him. "I can't see it anymore." He watched directly ahead where he heard it, and from the darkness charged the boss, who brought all the blades including two that disappeared down on him, but he sidestepped to the right to dodge it while dodging a tag at it that turns into bright light, causing it to shield itself from it, but in that instant his eye widens and turns to see an orb all of a sudden coming into existence, expanding and changing form to show an exact copy of the monster that swung all 6 blades at him, yet only a few slashes met their mark as his shoulders were slashed as he leaped back along with another wound. "Geez, this is annoying." As he muttered it, the copy disappeared, leaving him alone with the monster before another thing hits the floor, a broken monocle that revealed his hidden eye had a single piece of fabric covering it. To think a creature from a book would give me this much trouble, if she were to see me now she would be disappointed. He takes out multiple tags while the boss charges again. As they battle, in a different part of the library, Luz and Amity move through the mist to find Naruto. "It's so thick, I don't even know where we're going," muttered Luz, who found it odd that they'd been walking in a straight path for over 2 minutes yet they were still in the maze. AM. Immediately she turns to glare at Luz with great annoyance. "First you embarrass me. Then you go through my stuff and now you wanna be my friend? I don't get you at all, so just pick a side." After saying that, Luz grabs her arm. "Amity, I didn't mean for any of this." She stops before grabbing the surprised Amity close and pulling her down, both ducking as Naruto, still in his fox form, flew above their heads and slammed into a shelf, skidding down before the skeleton hands rose and grabbed into the fox, forcing it down. At this sight, both girls turn to the sight of the caged man approaching him, his gleeful gaze being seen through the caged helmet. "Hey, how do you do? My name's Michaelash. I was the head of this treatment church." As he spoke, suddenly skeletal hands rose from the earth and grab onto the 2 girls before he reaches out and grabs Amity to force her to look at him. "Oh, you kindred spirit, look into my eyes." Yet she does no such thing. "No, look harder." He frowns to see she was avoiding his gaze before he turns and runs off with Amity in tow. "Luz! Naruto!" She shouts as they turn a corner with Luz breaking free, seeing the skeletons falling apart upon Michaelash leaving their sight before more broken bones were heard as Naruto broke free and hooks her side. "Huh!" Luz lifts the diary she dropped and frowns. While this was happening, Amity found herself restrained by 2 skeletons and sitting down reluctantly while Michaelash looked through the book, making sure to keep a certain page open. "I can't sleep, not ever. So sit there, very, very quietly. A sort of sleepless sleep." As he spoke, Amity watched as one skeleton brandished a jagged knife while another prevented her from screaming, much to her fear, before a rumbling was heard and felt, gaining the attention of Michaelash, Amity, and the skeletons, who turned to see a purple cloud rolling in, with it a figure in white robes and hat landing appeared, riding atop a fox with armor. Zura. She tilts her head slightly as they were greeted by the odd sight of Luz riding upon Naruto. Close. She revealed Amity's diary, now open, before she pulls on the robes. "Is it a drawn okay? I kind of interpreted the descriptions." While saying that, Naruto just frowns with his fox face. "I feel ridiculous. Guys." Amity shouts to gain an immediate response. "Ah, right." She begins to write. The good witch, Lazura, grabs her trusty staff. A staff rises from the pages and she grabs it, pulling it out in hand. "All right, beloved work of children's fiction. Let go of her." She points the weapon at the Max man, who laughs until Naruto leaps to get next to Michaelash, who turns and received a strong swing to the shin, gaining an OW, before receiving 2 legs to the abdomen, sending him across the room and into a bookshelf that tips over. "I can't believe that worked," muttered the girl, who got off and runs to Amity's side, swngng the staff at the heads of the skeletons that broke them apart and freeing the girl. "Now what?" Amity shouts, looking at Michaelash, who started standing up while grabbing the cage, wishing he could touch his aching head. "I don't know. I didn't even think that would work. I was all like, roar, dot." As she said it, Amity just stares at her before a small chuckle left her lips. Upon seeing this, Luz grinned before their attention was turned towards Michaelash, who was up now. "Oh, you are terrible." He raises a hand as several skeletons burst forth and grab them, more so Naruto who was trying to break free. Michaelash Mary smiles as he lifts the book until something bursts through it, a needle that took him by surprise before the book was pulled out of his hands yet not before his fingers gripped a few pages and were ripped out, one featuring the boss the butler was fighting. All their eyes widen upon seeing Otobin standing there, closed book in hand. Otobin. Amity and Naruto said simultaneously as the little one held the book and looked at the two. Friend, he was silenced as their eyes widen in horror while Michaelash smiles. Ah, but so sad. As he spoke, the little was had a blade through him, courtesy of a skeletal hand coming out of the ground, brandishing a knife. The three watched as Otobin was fading away yet as he did so, he looks up at them one more time before vanishing. Now, Michaelash stops as his eyes start to widen just as Amity and Luz noticed it as well. Naruto was getting up with the skeletons breaking apart as their bones weren't strong enough to stay attached, but even so the single act took Michaelash by surprise as he saw something the others didn't, and that it was the faint pink glow emanating from his eyes before he leaped towards the foe who extends a hand to unleash octopus tentacles to stop him, yet all he did was a roar, creating a shockwave and sending him flying back into the wall that he slides down against. As this was happening, both girls just stand there as they watched the man stand up with Naruto leaping at him, mouth open wide, and chomping down upon his body. Wait Naruto, don't forget what the B. Luz stops mid-sentence as they watched Naruto WHP his head, ripping out part of Michaelash's body as a pink aura could be seen coming from Naruto's fangs, but as it was, so was Michaelash whose body was glowing bright green as he fell apart. Now I'm waking up, I'll forget everything, was the last thing he said as he vanished, causing the area to vibrate and revert to normal, showing they were back in the children's section. We're back, mutters Amity, who turns and his eyes widen at seeing Naruto was back to normal and sitting, staring at Otobin's book that was burning from green flames that reduced it to nothing. The sight caused the witch to look away while Luz just stares at the back of Naruto's head before the blonde stood up with the book having been reduced to ashes. We need to find the page. As he said it, he turns and picks up the book and lifts his hand to burn it before stopping as they heard a shout and turn, seeing the twins running into the section, out of breath and hurt, while followed by a blindfolded man smiling crazily at them with weapons in hand. Well, well. A hunter is it? Beasts everywhere. I like the smell of this hunt already. Ha ha ha. As he spoke, Naruto lifts the book that was suddenly consumed by flames, yet even so his and the eyes of the other widen at the fact it did nothing to him. Ah, beast, was that supposed to? He stops and starts to shake, his body turning bright green as he turns to look at Edric picking up a random page off the ground and tearing it, said page showing himself. Oh, was all he said as his body fell apart and was reduced to nothing, leaving the five in silence before Amity runs to her siblings, looking at their freshly made wounds, which thankfully didn't appear life-threatening. Are you guys okay? Well, despite being chased by an axe-wielding maniac, I'd say we're good. Amira mutters, still catching her breath like her brother, but it was at this time they heard the echoing of a fight. He's still fighting? Luz said in shock before his eyes widen and starts to look around but realizes that the leg the boss was on was missing. It could be anywhere. Amity said as she too was looking around with Naruto frowning before Amira spoke up, looking at her brother. Is there any way of dealing with that thing? Her questioner a hand to his chin before his eyes widen in realization. One way, follow me. That was all he said before he started to run off, which the others followed after him. As this was happening, the butler was mid-battle with the boss, still with more wounds that had started to get a little deeper. What's happening with those kids? His attention was drawn towards the balcony where he saw Edric appearing in view. Turn to page 24. He throws the book at the butler, who leaps and rolls, dodging the attacks for the boss who charged forward before he opens the book to the very page. What? The moment he opens to that page, his entire body glows green before his clothing changes to show he was now wearing black tricorn, a grey duster coat, a pair of brown LTHR boots, a pair of black gauntlets with golden ornaments and a reddish bandana covering his face. In his right hand was a large saw blade attached to a cleaver handle. This will work. As he said that, the boss was before him raising all 6 blades until a second later it found the cleaver in the invisible head, causing BLD to trickle before the butler leaped and grabs it before pulling down, slashing down from head to toe, leaving it collapsing as the crying soon ended with the body collapsing with a green light. "Whoa!" mutters Luz as the group was making their way down the steps while the butler closed the book, his form returning to normal, but it was at this time their eyes widened to see the countless wounds all over his body while the butler walks over to his jacket and picks it up. "You're hurt." At that point, he turns to see the others walking towards him, yet all he does was pull out a book from the jacket and open it to a certain page to reveal a few vials and hands it out to the twins. "There is no need to worry, I can heal my wounds so you may all return home to rest, you two merely need to pour that on your wounds. Since it was made by world magic, it should heal by tomorrow." When they heard that, the group was surprised. "Wait, don't you need help cleaning up? After all, it's he was elbowed and glared at by a few. "I mean, it was my fault, can't," he found a hand raised to stop them. "Do not worry, I shall clean up. Besides, I have something else I wish to do here before I leave, in private." He looks at Naruto, who was looking back, and a silent exchange was made. "Okay," was all he said before walking past the butler and turning to the others. "Let's leave and let him handle it, it's the least we can do for him after what he's been through." With exchanged looks, the group walks past him and out the door to the library. "What an adventure," mutters Liz, seeing it was late at night, already 2 a.m. "This never happened," mutters Amity as she walks past them, along with the twins who stopped next to their sister. "We were going to go goblin tipping." Amira started before her brother finishes it. "But seeing as we've been running for our lives, I think I just want to sleep. See you two later," he said with a wave while Amira gives to two a smile. "Later, cuties." Her response got them to blush as they start making their way down the steps, past Amity, who gave them the evil eye. "You're not gonna forget this, are you? What do you think?" Duly noted. With that said, the two continued on their way, but it was obvious how bothered they were from the looks on their faces as they left the three together. "It doesn't make up for what happened to your diary," Luz began, taking out a book. "But would you want to borrow this?" She reveals Book 5 of The Good Witch Azura. "I noticed you only had up to 4. This surprised the witch in training, who takes the book in hand. "Thank you. Maybe you aren't a bully. I have been far from the friendliest witch so far. I'll think about that. See you two around." With that said, she continued on her way with a book in hand, after her siblings and leaving the two by themselves. "I think Luz stops when she noticed Naruto wasn't next to her, and after a few seconds she saw him sitting behind the pillar. She approaches him. "Yawn, it's pretty late, we should head." Luz stops as her eyes widen, finding the blonde had his knees pulled up to his face with his arm wrapped around his legs while he shook, but what got her attention was the sniffing sounds before her thoughts went back to Otobin. Without a word, she sat next to the blonde and wraps an arm around him, causing him to jolt, yet didn't push her away but continued to cry. "I'm sorry about your friend." While this was happening, the butler was by himself as he sat in a more secluded part of the library, yet had a window that gave light to the area he was in. Showing his body with bandages on the wounds, he was given several empty vials next to him. From his jacket, he takes out a single book, a ragged book with slashes on it but a title still visible. The Good Witch Azura, Book 6/Final. With that, he takes out a second book, what looks to be a diary due to the lock on it, while the book itself appeared to be velvet in the cover color and LTHR. With that set aside, he soon takes out a small sensor holder in the shape of a snake before taking out 2 sensor sticks followed by a match. He lights it before lighting the sensors. Won't that done, he goes into his several pockets to retrieve a pocket watch and opens it while setting it down. It had a picture that revealed two kids, one being a kid wearing a snake mask while next to the person was a girl, a cheerful smiling girl with appealing red hair and violet eyes. As he stared at the picture, slowly he reaches up, past the collar where lay the tattoo around his neck. He reached out and takes the diary, opening it. An image of the same girl from the locket appears above the written words. Okay, the first entry for this diary thing I heard was a thing. Today. The man just stared at the girl who spoke before he bowed his head. I'm sorry. As he spoke, the girl continued to speak as he flipped the pages of the old diary. I met someone today. Father appointed some kid my age as my bodyguard. He started to shake as his hands turned to shake fists. I'm sorry. Kushina. I couldn't protect you, but I'll protect your little brother. It was sunrise by the time they got home, and both were very tired as they walked into the house. Sorry we're late, we were. Luz stops with Naruto also as surprised as her to see King and Ida snoring on the green couch, Ida holding the baby bats, and King snuggling on her lap. All of a sudden the door bursts open with Hooty shouting, "Ding dong," which in turn got their attention. Hooty. Hooty, don't make me put you back into the cone of shame. The owl's eyes momentarily widen with Liz wondering what he was talking about before their attention was drawn to the visitor, which was a giant woman's head with bat wings that crawls into the living room through the front door. Upon seeing her, Naruto suddenly brightens up. Whoa! You must be Mama. Mutters Luz to the smiling mother. Mama is I. And I is the Bat Queen. With a whistle, the baby bats fly away from Ida, settling into their mother's hair. Ah! Snuggle dumplings. She proceeds to throw up a treasure chest, which opens to show several hundred snails along with an Aztec death whistle. The scene just causes both teens to go wide-eyed. For troubles. She looks at Naruto and smiles, raising her wing to gently pat him atop his head. It is good to see you again, you have grown up. Her words caused him to smile cheerfully and she just smiles before looking at Luz. Is this your mate? That single question got her eyes to widen as the two just stared at her, now red-faced and not sure how to exactly respond. Only kidding, I heard Ida has taken in another. I would love to chat more but I must return home quickly, the Emperor's coven has been rather aggressive lately. That got a little worry from Naruto while Luz pushed aside the embarrassment before the bat lady turns away with a wave. She squeezes back out of the doorway and flies away, which Luz closes the door and turns to Naruto who seemed a little disappointed, this making Luz wonder just what happened between the two of them for him to act like the Bat Queen was like a grandmother. It was at this time they had awakened. Ah! Sweet babies. Where are the babies? Ida sits up in confusion, along with King, yet Luz merely mimes flying away while Naruto did sounds effects with an at the end. Oh. And I just taught Junior how to pick locks too. That got both Naruto and Luz to glance at each other and wondered if that will cause any issues. Your night looks very successful. Look at all that money you made. Luz turns, showing them the chest of riches. And look at this cool whistle the Bat Queen gave you. Her eyes widen upon picking up the whistle to see spit on it. I'd wash it before you use it. Despite that being said, Ida and King looked depressed. Yeah. We did it all for the money. I miss my babies. King proceeds to hug Ida, who returns the hug before she looks at them. You two look like you've been through a lot. You were gone all night at the library. What happened? Turns out the wailing meteor gives books physical form. One of the books that were opened was a horror story. Ha! Ida need not hear of the fact they were once again in mortal danger, but the sight of them appearing physically fine was enough to not press on. Yet even so, Ida glances at Naruto to see the fact his scara was slightly red, showing he's been crying, which in turn worries Ida on what exactly happened before the door suddenly opens with a squeak. Hey, you want to hear about my night? This got an immediate response from everyone. Ugh. No. No. That's not a thing anyone ever wants. There I was, staring at the sky when all of a sudden, an audible groan was the response Hootie got, encouraging him to continue his story. It was another day in the marketplace, Ida sitting next to King who held up a tray of who knows what while next to them sat Naruto and Luz, both staring at the pamphlet she was given by the principal of Hexside. Partake of my free snack samples. Take them, I demanded as your ruler, the king of demons. He shouted at the passerby that tried their best to ignore the little demon who ends up throwing the tray on the ground, which also was ignored by the two. Whoa! Did you know that Hexside was built on the bones of its rival school? She proceeds to show him the picture of a much younger principal bump standing on various students while being cheered on by fellow Hexside students. Behind them, a school was burning. One it literally conquered. As she said it with a smile, eyes glued on the pamphlet, she didn't notice the expression on Naruto's face as he looks way uncomfortable but forced a smile as Luz looks at him. Can you imagine it? Me, in the halls of Hexside, studying, she was silenced as their attention was drawn towards King. Nye. Why isn't anyone paying attention to me? I'm their rightful overlord. Intellectually and such. King sat, looking more exhausted than annoyed at not being given attention. Yeah, hey. She grabs a random by his cowl before sniffing him. It reeks more of nerd than money today. Luz looks at Naruto who shrugs. She's dated all sorts of guys. This got a glare from Ida. Will you guys stop spreading those rumors? She lets him go and he runs while Naruto just avoids her gaze while King laughs before they say the butler approaching them. Is something happening? The question of the heir got a nod in response. Yes, he points directly at the banner hanging behind him. But more importantly, please tell me you do know how to read. Naruto, Luz, Ida, and King stare at the banner which got the butler's one eye to widen and starts to sweat. When did that get there? I didn't even notice. They work fast. The only response they got was a breath being let loose, the butler showing signs of worry disappearing, yet Naruto and Luz glanced at each other, it being only 2 days since the library incident. Yet even so the two got up and walked over to the already placed stands that had books ready to be signed and sold while the butler merely passes them and placed a few books on Ida's stand. Well, at least the books aren't coming alive. Naruto said, a weak smile until he and Luz went pale upon a book that sat on a table opened up to speak. Hello. Naruto's ears shot up in shock and Luz just screams as she kicks it away. WL, that was unexpected, ahaha. Luz's fake laugh didn't help while Naruto's ears were dropped at the library incident was replaying in his head on the CRP they went through before they turned to see King with a Nye throws a piece of bacon on some kid's head who was offering his thoughts and was immediately picked up by a winged monster and taken away while he screams. The butler just stares at this scene, wondering if King just made some book reader monster chow, yet the scene was ignored by Ida who walks over to a stand. Ew. She throws a book to the ground, without a care from the gaze of the author that sat at her stand. B. I'm bored. C. I feel like pickpocketing some dork while they browse. Without another word, she simply walks off. But wait. Luz looks at Naruto who shrugs. Let's just look around, not like we're gonna have to deal with that whole thing again. After he said that, he glances at the book that had spoken. Yeah, the Wailing Star is over. She looks at King. Will you give it a chance? I'll let you ride in my hoodie. She puts up her hood, which filled Naruto with two emotions, one being insulted at the hood basically faking ears, and the second was. Naruto's eyes momentarily widen as he watched King get in Luz's hood. The sight of it confused the kid who looked down while the butler just stares at him, his gaze slightly narrowing as he looks between the two, yet, even so, he sat down and opened a book, leaving the three to walk off. Wow. This book fair's got everything. A zine-making workshop, meet and greets, and, what's that? With a gasp, the two follow her gaze. A writing competition. I've always wanted to be a writer. Lose. Smiles at seeing two lines, both handing in books to two individuals they didn't notice Naruto and King looking at her questionably. Writer? What? I thought you wanted to be a witch. King asked what Naruto was thinking and Luz nods. Of course, I wanna be a witch. But where I'm from that's kinda impossible. A slightly lost look appeared on her face, a sad smile. So my runner-up dream was to be a writer. From her pocket, she pulls out a picture, one showing a younger version of herself, smiling with a book in hand next to a man Naruto didn't recognize but knew that it was her father who was smiling. Just like my dad. Naruto's gaze just focuses on Luz, seeing there was clear sadness that was immediately forced down and replaced with a smile. That sight itself bothered Naruto, yet immediately a random girl just pushes past them in a hurry. Ugh. What are these basement dwellers doing out in natural sunlight? Naruto and Luz look at King. What, I'm not wrong. The two look at each other before they see one girl, the same small girl that caused a scene during the convention. We're in line for John de Plume, most famous writer on the Boiling Isles, famed author of the Realm Warrior series. I'm gonna have him read my story, and marry me. Naruto and Luz start to sweat drop before looking at John, who was signing books, then a child's forehead while laughing crazily. Is that? No, that's not something that should be considered normal. It was at this point he smelled something, a small scent that was quite familiar, and from the corner of his eye, he was looking at one cloaked individual that was standing in line with a book in hand. Amity? Naruto thought as he just stares before their attention was drawn to King. Luz the human. I too shall enter the competition. Declared the little one, who stuck his hand in the air, which gained a gasp from Luz. Really? We could work together. It'll be perfect. She looks at Naruto. Naruto, can you help as well so all three of us can make the best team? She smiles at her best friend, who starts to sweat. Actually, how about you two write a story? This surprised Luz, who wasn't expecting that. Besides, you two haven't spent a lot of time together to get to know each other since we're always hanging out. His answer was something Luz didn't expect, yet at that time King merely raises a hand. Team. Yes. Now onward, Luz, my trusty steed, let us make art. This caused Luz to smile before turning to Naruto. We're gonna be busy for a while writing a book, what will you be doing? Her question just gets a shrug. I'll go find Ida or the butler. With that said, the team left, with Naruto proceeding to turn and move. With a puff of smoke, he was now a shrunken fox on the move and stopped at the line, seeing Amity standing in line, which she was staring at a book, a look on uncertainty on her face. Guess she must have written a book. His train of thought was interrupted by the sudden sight of Amity walking out of line with her book tightly pressed against her chest. This sight gained a head tilt before he followed after the witch, who made her way out of the book fair and into an alleyway. Stupid, 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 Stu. Amity's eyes shot open as she get a tug and turns to find a fox biting down on her cloak, being dragged in the process. Wah, Naruto. She said with surprise as the fox opens his maw to let the cloak go. Hello, Mittens. This got her eyes too narrow as she bends down and picks Naruto up by the back of his neck, now having him dangling. Why are you following me? If he could, he would have shrugged. Saw you in line, you looked pretty bothered before you left it. Plus, you were muttering, stupid, dot. This had gotten her eyes to widen as a blush of embarrassment formed on her face at the fact she heard her muttering, yet her eyes widen and look around. Where's that human girl, Luz? If you're here then she must be close. This got a shake of the head. Nope, she went back to the owlhouse to write a book with King. This had surprised her quite a bit. She's going to enter the competition? Yup. In the end, Amity puts Naruto down and stood up straight. I'll be leaving now, so you. She was cut off by the sudden question. Why did you leave the line? The witch just stared at him before looking away, once more pressing the book against her chest. It's nothing, I just realized how stupid I was for believing my book could be any good. When she looked back, her eyes widened to see she was gone before feeling something and looks to see Naruto was now on her shoulder, even smaller, which gained a surprised yelp which causes her to lose her balance and falls backward, dropping the book. When she sat up, Naruto was now sitting on her lap, a little bigger, and places a paw atop her head, starting to pat her head. There, no point in doubting yourself, plus unless you've gotten someone's opinion other than your own you don't know. His words caused her eyes to widen and couldn't help but smile. I haven't really thought of that. As she muttered it, she reaches out and pets him, which almost immediately gets the reaction of half-open eyes with a sudden purring. The sight caused Amity's eyes to widen with a single thought coming to mind. Cute. She reaches out and takes his paw, which was incredibly soft to the touch. What are you doing to the air? Almost immediately her eyes shot open and turns with a look of embarrassment appearing on her face at the sight of the butler staring down at her, while at the same time, Naruto snapped out of it, not realizing what had happened. Oh, hey butler. When did you get here? He didn't even react to that, but his gaze was on Amity. Hi. Amity tried to force a smile, but his single eye seemed to bore into her, as if already judging her for what he saw before he breaks eye contact and sighs, a hand running through hair. MSTR. Just call me Naruto for the last time, or do I have to order you? This seemed to snap Amity out of whatever awkwardness she was feeling and looked at Naruto, now wondering more about who he was to have a butler. You have a butler? As she asked that, in the seconds to follow the fox turned back to his human form while sitting next to Naruto. He was sent by my father, turns out I'm the heir to the 9th demon lord in the demon empire. As Naruto said that nonchalantly, Amity's eyes shot open, and immediately starts to sweat. Recalling how they first met and her calling him a weirdo, a pet, and now treating Naruto like a pet while the butler watched, which he once more was staring at her with a judging gaze, resulting in a multitude of things, one being wanting to shove her face into her book, another to apologize, and many others. It was at this point, the royal thought of something and grabs the book, which gains Amity's attention as she watched him extend it to the butler, who tilts his head. Amity wrote this, can you read it and give your thoughts on it? This caused his eye to widen in surprise before they return to normal, and he takes it, looking over the title. The Nameless Hero. As he said the name, Amity looked slightly embarrassed, yet he sighs and opens the book. I'll read it and give my thoughts, should only take me 30 minutes. This surprised her as she watched him move to lean against a bunch of boxes. While I'm reading, please refrain from petting the air. The second part got Naruto to become wide-eyed, unlike Amity, who facepalms when she removed her hand. She found Naruto just staring at her blankly. I'm not a pet. I'm sorry. The butler just stared at the two before turning away and looking at the book, a lost look in his eye, while the two were talking with Amity trying to convince Naruto she doesn't see him as a pet but a friend, much to her embarrassment at admitting it, while the blonde just ahs her. Naruto. Apprentice. Living room. Called the owl lady, having returned to the house in the late afternoon when Naruto arrives, and was shortly followed by Luz, who's been riding with King. What's up, boss lady? Luz said while Ida closes a scroll and turns to them. I am popping out for a few days to an undisclosed place to do undisclosed things. Naruto and Luz look at each other. You two are in charge. Did you kill someone? No questions. Naruto, remember to feed Hootie, and Luz, remember to give King his baths. Okay, but... I said no questions. Ida makes her way to the door and closes it behind her. Naruto just tilts his head at what happened while Luz shrugs and starts walking back to her room while Naruto followed after her. It was then they spoke. So what did you do today? I actually hung out with Amity. That got a look of surprise on her face, something she didn't expect. Wait, when did you two start hanging out? He shook his head in response to that. We haven't seen her at the book fair and she was in line before walking away. She looked bothered, so I went after her to see if everything was okay. She had her own story she wrote but wasn't sure it was good enough, so I talked to her and got the butler to read it and he gave her his thoughts. She's correcting a few things in her story." As he spoke, he didn't realize Luz had figured out this must have been the main reason why he didn't want to help write the story she and King were making. It was at this point they make it to Luz's room, where they find the room filled with drawings of King and screaming people on the corkboard, while in the trash can was papers of Lazura. This scene also had King typing happily. Hey Luz, great news." He turns to the human who enters the room while going in a circle, looking at everything while Naruto just stood at the doorway. "What have you done?" While she demands that, Naruto looks up at the banner, seeing it was written over with ruler's reach, yet the real question was how he could reach it. "I just made a few tiny edits and this baby is humming." Naruto enters the room, looking at the trash can as he started to see the issue, while Luz picks up a piece of paper and shoos it. "Lazura dies?" Naruto just, "Oh," the moment he heard it, yet King just responds happily. "I know, right? What a twist." "King, I know you're trying to help, but I think you're crossing a line." Naruto's eyes widen to see Luz looking somewhat hurt. "Yeah, into greatness. Don't you want us to win?" "If this is how you want to win," she wraps her arms around herself. "Maybe you should submit the story on your own." She turns and walks out of the room, which Naruto follows as the door closes behind them. "Luz, are you?" He stops upon seeing the clear hurt on her face while she spoke. "Naruto, do you mind if I spend the rest of the day by myself?" The moment he heard that, his eyes widened with his ears flopping, yet could say nothing but watch as she walks down the hall towards her room. All he could do was stand there before he looks back at the room she and King were once in. It was already nighttime, and despite it being dark out, it wasn't that late, with Luz just laying in bed, staring at the photo of her and her father. "Would I have ever been as good as you?" While she thought that, it was at this point she had begun to hear scratching at the door. She sat up. "What's that sound?" The moment she muttered that, it stopped for a few seconds before it begins again. After a few seconds she got out of bed and approached the door, opening it slowly to be greeted by the sight of a small fox that had a bunch of papers in its mouth, the same papers that King threw away, and just placed them in front of him before looking back up at Luz, who stares down at Naruto with her eyes widening. She bends down and picks up the papers. "Thanks, Naruto, but I don't think." She was silenced as the fox was nudging her leg, resulting in Luz smiling. "Do you mind helping me write a story?" Without a single reply, the fox just moves into her room, jumping onto her bed and sitting down on it, which causes Luz to smile happily at how cute he was being. She simply closes the door and makes her way to the bed in order to sit down. "Okay, starting off, it's called Lazura's Awakening. The moment she said that, she got a blank stare she was getting from Naruto, who just stared at her, and she starts to laugh awkwardly. "Is it really that cliché?" With a puff of smoke, she found Naruto now sitting next to her in his humanoid form. "It's a lawsuit waiting to happen if the actual creator of the Good Witch Azura finds out." This got Luz's eyes to widen. Lawsuits typically end in a sudden death match, plus King used your character in his story. Ida was dragged in a lot a few years ago when she tried copying other witches' unique stands. Sweat starts to fall from her face. "How about changing her name to your last name, Nosita?" This got a look of surprise on her face, and she enters a thinking pose. "Yeah, that could work, but what should her last name be?" Naruto just puts on a thinking expression. "How about Tsuyu, Nosita Tsuyu?" The name got a response, which was Luz smiling at the name before spreading out the papers in front of them. Originally the idea was going to be around romance, magic, and heartbreak with shimmer tears. But when me and King worked on the story, the main thing that was kept was magic. How about we include romance and heartbreak but change the whole magic concept? Witches won't be in this story. Naruto lays down with his left arm supporting his head. "Well, how about the Demon Empire?" That got her full undivided attention. "From what I heard from the butler, it closely relates to Japan in your world that they took inspiration from. This got Luz's eyes to widen as she smiles. How about we include ninja? Luz's idea got a surprised look from the blonde. Ninja? Yup. She smiles happily and takes a pen off her nightstand, writing down notes before she places a pen against her chin and looks at Naruto. Last but not least, the second main character. She starts to smile more at the fox-eared teen who tilts his head. Since my character uses my last name, so how about we call him Naruto? Naruto Musasabi. She smiles brightly at Naruto, who stares at her, a look of surprise on his face which immediately causes Luz's eyes to widen, and looks away. Yeah, that sounds stupid actually, I'll just. No. Luz jolts as she looks back at Naruto, seeing his ears twitching while the blonde looks embarrassed. It's fine, I just wasn't expecting you to want to name a character after me. His words could only cause Luz to smile before she writes something down and turns it toward him. The Tale of the Utterly Gutsy Ninja. What do you think of the title? I like it. While they continued to chat with ideas, outside the room stood the butler whose arms were crossed. I still can't tell if the heir is becoming too attached to that human. If things continue to progress it'll be just like with the Lord. Even now I still don't understand why he mated with a human, after their passing, why? The side effects, in general, will make the heir taking his place that much harder to impossible. He frowns at the thought and uncrosses his arms. Continuing to think doesn't change anything, I'll merely bide. Once the time is up, he will come back with me. The butler just frowns more to himself. Thank you for your thoughts. The butler just lets out a deep breath, his single eye staring at nothing in particular. When was the last time I was asked to read a book? As he thought that to himself, something came to mind. Your smile is my salvation. His eye widens as emotions he hadn't felt in years came to him. His left hand reaching up, grabbing his face while his back leans into the wall which he slides down against. MSTR. Where am I? That was the only question being asked. Luz the human simply stood in the darkness where nothing was viewable. All she could do was look around, yet it was the same thing in the end until she finally heard it, laughter, a child's laughter. At that point, Luz turns to look at where it was coming from and found a completely glowing white being that appeared to have the shape of a child standing behind her. What gained her attention the most was the shape being similar to King. Hello. Who are you? As she asked it that, the being tilted its head before it points. This confused Luz, who points at herself before the being shook its head. At that point Luz's eyes widen and turn, seeing nothing but darkness until it happens. What looked like an eye-opening, she found a massive eyeball before her with red sclerae and irides while possessing a ripple pattern spreading over the eye and 9 tomo. At that point, Luz was startled awake as she sat up immediately in a cold sweat. Taking deep breaths, she just sat there staring at the wall, the image stuck in her thoughts. What? Luz could only mutter before her eyes widened and turned. What she saw on the floor sleeping soundly was Naruto, who looked quite peaceful before she takes out her phone, seeing it was already past 10 a.m. after working strong last night on their story. Oh, we spent all night taking notes and constructing the story. Luz mutters and looks at the table, seeing they have just started typing the book. We got the plot about done, just need to write it. After thinking that, she turns to Naruto and a smile forms on her face before she silently gets off her bed. Grabbing the blanket that had slipped off him, she slowly pulled it over him until she froze. Mom. As those words left his mouth, Luz's eyes merely widen. If what you say is true, then you know how to train Naruto. He's only been able to do some things such as create a clone, transform, and create fire. If he doesn't know anything else, I want you to teach him his. Pointless. How is teaching him pointless? Slowly she pulls her hand away, staring down sadly at the sleeping kitsune. I can't train him because he doesn't have a bile sac, despite how powerful his father is. Because he was born to a human woman he wouldn't have one. For how he was able to do all those things without a bile sac, I do not know where he draws it from, only his father would know that. If that's true, what about his mother? Where is she in all of this? I've noticed you haven't mentioned anything about her since we met. Luz starts to grip the blankets before her eyes widen at the movement being felt, and slowly the blonde sat up yawning. His head turns to her with his eyes half open. Morning, he stops with his eyes widening upon finding Luz right next to him, but the thing he focuses on was not the fact of how close they were nor the fact why she was next to him. Slowly raised a hand and wipes away a tear from her eyes. Did you also have a nightmare? His words caused her eyes to widen before she shakes her head. Why yeah, just a nightmare was all, but it's fine now. Ahaha, I'm already forgetting what it was about. As she spoke, the air just stares at her, seeing the visible lie before looking away. Welp, we should continue with typing out the rest of the. He was cut off as the window bursts open to reveal Hootie. DLVRY. Almost immediately he started to cough and choke before shooting out what seems to be a book that slams right into Naruto's face. Ow. Hootie. Whoops. Without another word the head just goes back outside, leaving the two by themselves with Naruto's just glaring at the window with his eye twitching while Luz reaches towards the book and picks it up, confusion on her face. Ruler's Reach. As he read the title the two just look at each other before they heard knocking and turn to find King entering, wearing an expensive jacket, a new scarf, and shades. Morning. Guess who won the writing competition and became a blockbuster writer superstar? This immediately caused her to glare at King before turning away and pulling the typewriter closer to her to begin to focus again while King slides right into her. You're right, it's me. Me. Do you want to touch my scarf? A fan crocheted it out of their own hair. It smells so bad. Unlike the blonde who seemed disgusted, Luz didn't even look at him but instead looked at the notes to see where they had left off. My publisher is throwing a huge party for my book, he reveals 2 envelopes. Ruler's Reach. And I'd like for you two to be there. I would ask Ida too, but she's still gone. As he hands Naruto the invitations, he looks at Luz to see the look on her face. King, I don't think she's going to come after what you did. This merely confused the little one who tilts his head. What? I was making the story better instead of using her gushy fantasy slop. This caused Naruto's eyes to widen along with Luz's, who grips the typewriter. In my opinion, it did the story. He was cut off by a voice filled with anger. Out. This took King by surprise. Huh. Get out, now. As he heard those words yet could not see her face, he huffs and turns his back to them. Alright, fine. Be that way I guess. Was all he said before walking towards the door and exits with it closing behind him, leaving only silence in the room with the air just turning to stare at the back of Luz's head. Luz. Am I a bad writer? At this point, his eyes widen and a frown forms on his face before he hugs the human from behind, something she did not expect. Everyone has their own opinion. Even if King doesn't like your ideas. Despite hearing that, she still didn't appear any better. I do. That got a surprised look on her face before she turns to look at the blonde whose fox ears move around, which she ends up smiling, tracing out and proceeding to pat Naruto on the head before scratching behind his ears. Thanks, Naruto. She stops to see his eyes were narrowed. I already told Amity this, I am not a pet. But you look like you're enjoying it. The human just smirks at seeing the embarrassed look on the blonde's face as he was nudging his head into her hand while she scratched behind his ears. Do you want me to say, good boy? Do you want me to use your Azure collection as a chew toy? Noted. She pulls her hand away immediately, both staring at the other before they laugh, only stopping when Luz looks at the envelopes, taking one and opening it to reveal a ticket. Meet the author tonight, only Bonesboro Library. Luz just frowns when she stares at it. Should I go? Her question got an annoyed look on Naruto's face. I can't blame you if you don't want to, he said some pretty mean things. This in turn caused her to look back at the typewriter. I wonder if Amity already submitted hers, but seeing as King's was already picked, there's not much of a reason to continue. A shake of the head was given as Naruto reached out and picked up some papers. Doesn't matter, wanna still write it for fun? This caused Luz to look surprised before she smiles. It was late that day, already past sundown, that the butler just stood outside the library, seeing large signs all over the front for King's new book along with a line leading inside. Yet he just ignores that and walks past the line, gaining stares and looks of shock at seeing him walking up the steps to the front door only to be stopped by 2 guards. Back of the line, or are you on the VIP list? One of the 2 large demons said. They both wore jeans and black shirts, one having no facial parts besides a mouth with yellow-tinted teeth showing, while there was a simple eye without a mouth or ears. Name? Naruto. Oh, you're on the list. With that said, the 2 stepped aside to allow the man to walk past them into the library, where he was greeted by the sight of a line leading to the front desk with King with his shades on next to his publisher, a lizard-like demon, the same one at the fair which the butler's eye narrows. We love you, King. My life has meaning again because of your book. Sign my baby's forehead. The butler visibly starts to cringe at the sight of a demon trying to get their child's forehead signed. Your fans are dying to know when Ruler's Reach 2 comes out. Ha! King pats his smiling publisher on the back. That's between me and my publisher, right, Pinniot? This got a nod from the demon. Yes. Ooh, pardon me, I need a few moments of King's time. As Pinniot said that, he was leading King away and the butler was about to follow when he heard a familiar voice. Hello again, sir. This caused him to stop and turn, seeing Amity behind him with her book in hand. What is it? I'm in the middle of something, he said, turning away to see the 2 were gone, which he made a tch sound. I wanted to say thank you. This caused his eye to widen as he looks back at the witch. With your help, I realized the mistakes I made in my story and wanted to know what you think of them. This merely got a sigh. Why not ask the Naruto or the human? This got a response he wasn't expecting, an embarrassed look on her face which causes him to give her a blank expression. I rather have your opinion. From how you explained the issues of my story, it sounds like you've written stories. This time he looked surprised before he looks away with a more uncomfortable expression forming on his face until another voice got their attention. Ah, butler guy. Spoke King, who was approaching the 2 of them. Since you're here, that must mean Naruto and Luz are as well. Could you do me a favor and find Luz? This got his eye to slowly narrow. I need her help to write my next book. Apparently, I can't write my daring works of genius without rebelling against her boring fantasy love sto. He was cut off by a single word. No. What? But why? He was cut off abruptly by the butler, who just looks down at King, who found himself being looked down upon by a gaze Amity is familiar with. I am not an idiot. You worked with the human girl to create a story, yet you selfishly changed it the moment she left, throwing away her ideas in favor of your own. This took King by surprise along with Amity, while few started to listen in. Hey, what she wrote was all hugging and crying. It would have been written as bad as that Good Witch Azure book. The moment he heard that, the butler twitched. Though who am I kidding? That bad fandom managed to suck me in, but even I can tell the author had no talent in writing. Makes me wonder why they even wrote that garbage of a. Just as Amity was about to speak up to defend her favorite book, they both froze, a cold chill running down their spine and everyone else nearby, as the butler was now glaring at King, who took a step back. Everything okay? King stops talking as the butler spoke clearly, his gaze not once leaving him, both remaining in eye contact. I will say this only once: if you ever insult her work in front of me again, I will erase you. This merely gets a low whine from King, who was all but shaking from the intense murderous gaze he was getting, something that Amity was already sweating. Gee gotcha, I'll be sure to never say anything bad about the book again. Why, you have my word on it. At this point, the butler's eye widens at seeing King shaking and looks at the wide-eyed Amity before around to see everyone was now staring at him, which he just grits his teeth and turns away. No matter what you decide, don't forget that in the end, this was a book you started with someone you care about. That was all he said as he walks away, leaving King by himself, which he looked down at his feet while Amity just stares at the back of the butler's head. At this point, King shakes his head and starts running towards the door, watching as the butler had two guards open the doors for him yet suddenly stand in front of King, not letting him leave, which the butler takes notice of. "Hey, what's the big idea?" "No can do, we were told specifically that you can't leave until after the big event," one of the guards said to King, who takes off his shades, scarf, and jacket in order to throw them at the guards. "What seems to be the problem, King? You're causing a scene?" questioned Pinhead, who was approaching them while more gathered to see what was happening both at the front door and inside the library. "I quit. Tell your minions to let me through." This shocked the readers who had come for the unveiling of King's next book, which Pinhead shook his head. "That's not gonna happen." With that said, he pulls out a rolled-up piece of paper. "Not until I get my bestseller. You'll recall you are under contract." With that said, the contract glows pink, the same color appearing on King, who starts to float. Ah! Nyeh! This sight just surprises and shocks others, yet the lizard demon just shrugs. "He's merely filling his obligation," he said while looking around before hearing a voice behind him. "Did you make copies?" This confused the Pinhead at the question, turning towards the exit to respond. "Why would I need a—" He stops as a talisman was placed on his chest with a particular design, instantly encasing his abdomen and legs in ice with just his arms and head free. Wah! He was cut off as the butler took the contract out of his hand and placed another talisman on it, bursting it to flames before anyone could react. "It's done, I'm leaving," was all he said, walking away and leaving the guards dumbfounded as they just stare at his retreating form, with everyone just staring before turning to King, who just shrugs. "Well, that was rather anticlimactic," was all the little one sad before he walks out the door with the guards just looking at each other, not sure what to do. Sir, do we free me?" "Yes, sir." And with that, the two guards begin trying to free their boss while many witches and demons start pulling out their scrolls to take pics and post. During this whole thing, Amity just stares at the back of the butler. "Who are you?" thought the witch before turning towards Pinhead trying to be freed, and was approached Tinella Nosa. "Sir, could you read my story?" Her question gained a massive sigh while the guards were busy trying to find a pickaxe. Knock. 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 3 knocks were the only sound they heard, both Naruto and Luz turning away from the typewriter of their book in progress. With a look between them, Luz got off her bed to approach the door and opens it to find the butler standing there with a sad King. He would like to say something. With that said, the butler just walks away, which left King, who was looking down at his feet. "Luz, I wanted to apologize for what I said and did." In response, Luz looks away with her left hand rubbing her right arm. "What you said really hurt me, King." This caused the small one to look down sadly. "All I wanted was to write a dumb story with my friend, but all you did was ruin that." This caused King to rub the back of his head. "I know, I thought only about fame and myself. Instead of working on the story together, I just made it about myself while saying a lot of hurtful things. Luz, you're not a bad writer, I'm just a bad friend." This caused the two to look at him with surprise. "Luz, you're living your dream. Unlike the world you were born into, you've been given the chance to become a witch. So far, this is as close as I'll ever get to my dream. Everything just went to my head, and because of it, I was blinded and ended up hurting you, but I was too selfish to realize it. I'm sorry." He was cut off as Luz suddenly hugged him, which his tail starts wagging. "Hey, being with you is one of my favorite parts of this dream." With that said, King hugs her back while Naruto with a smile before he realized something. "Why was the butler with you?" That question got a look of surprise. Oh, he came to me at the book signing at the library and talked sense to me, made me realize just how much of a jerk I really was. This took the two of them by surprise. And turns out, he's a really big fan of the book, The Good Witch Azura. He is. Wait, but he hated the book. He found the grammar horrible. Luz tilts her head in confusion, which King nods. Yeah, I said some harsh things I shouldn't have about the writer and he got angry, actually really angry, almost sounded like he knew the author in person. This caused Luz's eyes to widen all the way in shock. He knows the author. Luz all but shouts. Ever since I started the series, the author was never revealed in any of the books. I've always wanted to thank the author, their book got me through a lot of strong times. A sad smile forms on her face before looking up. I'm gonna go ask him. She was cut off by King suddenly yawning loudly, rubbing his eyes, and looking tired. This sight caused her to smile. Seems someone has had a long day. In response, Naruto bent down and picked him up in his arms. Must have been very stressed out and anxious, you guys coming to terms plus it's late. He turns to Luz just as King started to snore a little, having almost instantly fallen asleep. How about waiting tomorrow, it's already late as is from us working on the story. This got a smile of understanding from the human. Yeah, it is late. Just as she said it, a yawn escapes her lips. And has been a long day. In response, Naruto walks past Luz while King follows, the blonde turned back to her. Night Luz. Night Naruto, night King. With that said, the door shuts which left Luz by herself before she turns off the lights. With a yawn, she approaches her bed and falls into it. Laying there she takes out her phone in order to slide to the photo section where she pulled out a picture of herself and her father again. I wonder, what would you think of our story, Dad? As she thought that, she turns off her phone to let the land of dreams claim. Why? Muttered none other than the Bat Queen. It was the middle of the night and her full attention was on a single tree, a tree lined with symbols. Why now? As she asked, she was staring at a noticeable large crack. Said crack began to shake once again and it widens like an eye opening to reveal a massive eyeball before her with red sclerae and irides while possessing a ripple pattern spreading over the eye and 9 tomo. With it, it began to shake with the tree growing slowly as the Bat Queen grits her teeth. It's awakening. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for more crossovers. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Orion's Night on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.